But I go, can I just try another one? That moment comes and I just go, this is Sparta!
There's a scene in 300 that millions of people have watched, paused, rewound, and argued about for almost 20 years, and almost nobody actually knows what's happening in it. It's not the battle. It's not the "this is Sparta" kick. It's a strange hypnotic moment involving a half-naked woman writhing in smoke, mumbling words that sound ancient and meaningful. And according to the people who made the film, those words mean absolutely nothing at all. Stick around, because by the end of this video you'll know exactly what was really said in that scene, why it was never supposed to make sense, and how an actress with zero scripted lines accidentally created one of the most debated moments in modern action cinema. Before we get into it, if you're into deep dives on the stories behind your favorite movies, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me if you ever rewound this scene trying to figure out what she was saying. I guarantee you're not the only one. Let's get into it. When 300 exploded into theaters in March 2007, it didn't creep up on audiences, it crashed through the front door. Zack Snyder's adaptation of Frank Miller's graphic novel pulled in roughly $70 million in its opening weekend alone, an enormous number for a movie built on a relatively modest $60 million budget, and went on to gross well over $400 million worldwide. It turned Gerard Butler into a household name, gave the internet the gift of "This is Sparta," and somehow made history class cool again for a summer. But buried in the middle of all that bronze and blood spectacle is a scene that plays completely differently from everything around it. Leonidas climbs a mountain to consult the Oracle of Delphi, hoping for guidance before he commits Sparta to war. What he finds is a teenage girl, draped in gauzy fabric, dancing alone in a chamber filled with incense smoke, while elderly priests, the Ephors, watch from the shadows. She speaks. Her words are strange, fragmented, almost musical. And then Leonidas leaves, and the movie never explains what any of it meant. For years, fans have debated this scene online. Was it a real prophecy? Was it corrupted by the Ephors for their own political gain? Was there a hidden message buried in her words that ties into the larger plot? People have slowed the audio down, transcribed it syllable by syllable, and built entire theories around what the Oracle really said. Here's the twist: there was nothing to find. And the explanation is stranger, and honestly more interesting, than any fan theory. The Oracle was played by an actress named Kelly Craig, and according to the film's own behind-the-scenes commentary, her dialogue in that scene wasn't written, translated, or based on any historical Spartan ritual. It was improvised gibberish. She wasn't given lines. She was given a vibe, and told to fill the silence with sounds that felt ancient and unsettling, whatever came naturally in the moment. That alone is the kind of detail that recontextualizes the entire scene. This wasn't a puzzle box hiding a secret message. It was a director trusting an actor's instinct to create atmosphere over information. And by most accounts, Snyder loved what he got. There's one specific detail that stuck around in interviews and trivia pieces for years. At some point during her improvisation, Craig managed to work in the word Carnea, the actual name of a real religious festival in ancient Sparta. Snyder reportedly found this thrilling, almost like the universe had handed him a happy accident that made the scene feel more grounded, even though it was built entirely on nonsense. Think about that for a second. The single word that ties this whole sequence back to real Spartan history wasn't planned. It wasn't in a script. It slipped out during an actress just riffing in front of a camera, surrounded by smoke machines and intense lighting, trying to sound like she was channeling something from beyond. And it worked so well that audiences have spent nearly 2 decades assuming it was meticulously crafted. So if you've ever felt like you were missing something by not understanding what the Oracle said, you weren't missing anything. Nobody was supposed to understand it. That was the entire point. Here's where it gets more interesting, because once you understand that the dialogue was intentionally unintelligible, the scene starts to make a different kind of sense. 300 is told almost entirely from the perspective of Dilios, a Spartan soldier recounting the story of Thermopylae to rally other Greek soldiers into battle. That means everything we see on screen is filtered through one man's memory and motivation to inspire, not a neutral historical record. The film leans into this unreliable narrator structure constantly. The monstrous, towering depiction of the Persian army, the impossibly muscular Spartans, the rhinos and supernatural creatures that almost certainly never existed at the actual battle. None of it is meant to be taken as fact. It's myth, exaggerated by a storyteller with an agenda. Seen through that lens, the Oracle scene fits perfectly. Of course her words are unintelligible. Of course they feel performative rather than informative. The film isn't asking you to decode a prophecy, It's showing you a society where mysticism, superstition, and political manipulation are tangled together, and where the men in power can simply interpret a girl's incoherent mumbling however benefits them most. The corrupt Fers in the film essentially function as gatekeepers who twist whatever she says into the answer they want, regardless of what actually came out of her mouth. Whether or not that was the literal intent behind every choice on set, it's a reading that holds up remarkably well once you know the words themselves carry zero fixed meaning. There's also a sharper edge to this that's worth sitting with. The scene has been criticized over the years for how it frames the Oracle, young, nearly nude, drugged-looking, surrounded by older men who clearly hold power over her. Whatever your read on that creative choice, it underlines the same point. This sequence was never built around the content of her speech. It was built around imagery, mood, and the discomfort of watching someone speak in a language designed to be impossible to pin down. Understanding the Oracle scene gets even easier once you understand how the rest of 300 was actually made, because almost nothing in this film exists the way it appears on screen. The entire movie was shot inside a studio, with the overwhelming majority of shots, by some estimates, around 90%, built or enhanced using visual effects. There was no Thermopylae cliffside, no ancient Greek throne room, no real ocean for the famous storm sequence. Actors performed in front of blue screens, surrounded by minimal physical sets, while artists thousands of miles away built the mythic world of Sparta around them in post-production. The blood, the smoke, the glowing skies, most of it was added digitally, layered on top of performances that were, in the moment, happening in front of a flat-colored wall. So when you watch the Oracle dance through clouds of mystical-looking smoke in a chamber that feels like it was carved into the side of a mountain, you're actually watching an actress performing in a relatively bare studio space, reacting to direction rather than to any real environment, filling the air with sounds that meant nothing, in a scene that would later be wrapped in atmosphere it never had during filming. It's one of the more honest examples of how much of 300's power comes from illusion stacked on illusion, a director's vision, an actor's improvisation, and a visual effects team's ability to make all of it look inevitable. Gerard Butler, who has talked openly over the years about the physical extremes of making this film, has described the entire production as something closer to an endurance test than a typical movie shoot. Long hours under intense lighting, performing demanding physical sequences against backdrops that weren't really there, having to imagine combat with enemies and environments his eyes hadn't actually seen. The Oracle scene, strange as it looks, was made under those same conditions. An actress speaking nonsense into a smoke-filled void, expected to make audiences believe she was channeling the will of the gods. It's worth asking why a single scene from a film with this many memorable moments, the kick into the well, the wall of shields, the "tonight we dine in hell" line, became the one people kept coming back to, trying to crack like a code. Part of it is simple curiosity. Humans are wired to look for patterns, especially when something is presented with weight and seriousness. The Oracle scene is shot with reverence. The lighting, the score, the slow camera movements all signal this matters. So naturally, audiences assumed the words mattered too. When a scene is staged like a revelation, the brain expects a payoff. Part of it is also the nature of online fandom itself. Movies like 300 live forever in clip form, replayed, slowed down, picked apart frame by communities that thrive on finding hidden meaning. A garbled, ominous-sounding chant is basically irresistible bait for that kind of analysis, especially when, there's nothing actually hidden inside it. And honestly, there's something a little poetic about the fact that the real explanation involves an actor's spontaneous creativity rather than a screenwriter's careful design. 300 has always been a film obsessed with myth-making, with the idea that legends grow bigger and stranger the more they're retold. It feels fitting that one of its most mysterious moments was itself a kind of accident that became legend. A few seconds of improvised sound that audiences turned into a mystery worth solving for almost 20 years. What this whole story really reveals isn't just a fun trivia answer. It's a reminder of how much of what we experience as meaning in film is something we bring to the screen ourselves. Snyder and his collaborators gave audiences a stylized, deliberately unreliable retelling of an ancient battle, dressed it in visuals so striking they overrode any need for historical accuracy, and trusted that the emotional weight of the moment would carry it, even when the actual words spoken meant nothing at all. And it worked. People believed in that scene enough to spend years trying to translate static. Maybe that says something about how stories function in general, that conviction and atmosphere can do more heavy lifting than information ever could. Or maybe it's simply proof that a talented actress, a smoke machine, and a director willing to embrace a happy accident can create something more enduring than any carefully scripted line might have. Either way, the next time you watch Leonidas climb that mountain and the Oracle begins to speak, you'll know the truth. There was never a code to crack. The mystery was the point. If you enjoyed this deep dive, do me a favor, hit like, Share this with a fellow 300 fan who's probably tried to decode that scene at some point too, and subscribe so you don't miss the next behind-the-scenes story. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Did you ever think the oracle's words meant something specific, or did you always assume it was just for atmosphere? Let me know down below.